Haters don't hate you. The reality is they fear that they will never be able to get to where you are right now. By Unknown. Hello, welcome to the Toya Talks podcast. My name is Toya Washington, and each and every Tuesday we have a brand new episode of the Toya Talks podcast available on all podcast platforms. I don't even know where to start. I don't. So listen, this episode is centered on a dilemma that I received because it also inspired a decision that I made, and I will be sharing here on the podcast. So before we get into that particular dilemma, there is a lot of things that have happened over the course of the week, and if you know anything about how we start the podcast, we do recap on the week or certain things that have kind of shone through for me, certain messages that I wanted to communicate and also share my views. I obviously am very active on social media, and if you want to follow me on social media, then I am on Instagram. I'm very interactive on there. My personal Instagram page is Toya_Washington. And of course, the Toya Talks podcast Instagram page is active as well, Toya_Talks. So let's just start from the beginning. I've already spoken about and shared my views about Jessie Nelson. I'm not going to overflog the issue. Any of you who have not heard my views, I will repost what I posted on Instagram stories on the Toya Talks podcast Instagram page. But yeah, so I go into my views. I've shared my views on there. And obviously, since I have shared my views, I've also seen that Nicki Minaj has come to the defense of Jessie Nelson to basically say, there's no point trying to, call Jessie Nelson out for blackfishing when there's plenty of celebrities who use tan and have kind of been doing the whole blackfishing thing, but no one wants to call them out, but it's Jessie Nelson that we're calling out. With Nicki Minaj, I don't even know if I'm a Nicki Minaj fan. I've never been able to make that decision, but I will say is that she needs to concentrate on her family issues and making sure that her husband signs the registers that he is supposed to. Something that really pisses me off is that this society, as we know, is predicated on racism. Blackfishing and white women deliberately committing themselves to being racially ambiguous so that they have proximity to blackness and therefore able to appropriate black culture. There will always be a black person that, and I'm just going to say it, white people will use as a token, almost like a badge, to get and feel comfortable being able to operate in appropriation insofar as they've got a black person advocating for them. Now, when I say a black person, in this case, we're talking about Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj has been paid a handsome sum for this collaboration. Let's be honest. If she wasn't paid, would she really even look so much as stand on the same stage as Jessie Nelson? No, she would not. She's been paid a healthy sum. Jessie Nelson is using the traction of triggering the black community and her blackfishing and her appropriation and her racial ambiguity to further push her shit single, which is called Bad Boys. And we're going to get to P. Diddy in a minute, because that man is very deplorable, and I think that his behaviour is absolutely disgusting, and I'm going to call it out here. This is our safe space where we're able to have conversations like this. And Nicki Minaj is failing to understand, and I think I'm going to put it down to whatever she is using to allegedly lighten her skin tone. I think the toxins have entered her frontal lobe and therefore distorting her ability to process exactly what is happening here. The issue that we have here is we can go around talking about the queen of blackfishing, who is Kim Kardashian, but the topic at question at hand is Jessie Nelson. Jessie Nelson, former Little Mix member, has never, ever, ever advocated, done anything for, displayed any allyship towards the black community. In fact, what she has done is be allowed to appropriate black culture by using a historic, and it's a historic song, we all know that song, a song that is definitely entrenched in our history insofar as music and the evolution of hip-hop, and been able to copy this song and perpetrate racial stereotypes that are dangerous. On top of that, she has then sought the clout of Nicki Minaj to be able to do that. I didn't know what race Jessie Nelson was, because when she started on X Factor, she was white. She has morphed into somebody I do not recognise, and her racial ambiguity is purely so that she can access, appropriate, profit from the black culture, and her attempts to push a narrative rooted in racial stereotype that bad boys are black and bad boys wear do-rags and have gold teeth is not only disgusting and deplorable, it's downright disgraceful. And the fact that she is perpetuating these racial stereotypes standing beside a black woman who is basically giving her permission to be able to do it because she ain't checking that shit is disgusting. So I'm not going to go into all the details of like my views and stuff. I will repost it on the Toya Talks podcast Instagram page, but I'm just going to say, as far as I'm concerned with Jessie Nelson, she's been dragged. People have dragged her, and the only person to come to her defense is a black woman. But I'm sure they probably allegedly paid her to do that too. So Nicki Minaj, to be quite honest with you, I don't know if I'm a fan of you, but I definitely know and understand that you and your skin colour has changed over the years. And whilst I do not judge anybody for decisions they make on their body, what I am going to say is, unless we call out the things that non-black people do to push racial stereotypes and further attempt to pull us as a community backwards, unless we stand up and talk about it, is going to continue. And as far as I'm concerned, Jessie Nelson knows exactly what she's done, exactly what she's doing. When her her former bandmate Leanne did a documentary about her experiences in the music industry as she identifies as a black woman. Leanne is mixed race and she identifies as a black woman, and she also identified within the music industry how her treatment has been completely different to other bandmates who are white or of different races. And not one time did Jessie Nelson ever defend, promote, stand beside that documentary. But when it's time to stand on the podium of black culture, we see her standing there, and I don't understand. And I keep saying to people, don't say to me as a non-black person that you grew up on black culture. Don't come here and say that you grew up in black culture and use it as an excuse to push racial stereotypes. Growing up in black culture and being a part of the black culture are two different things. And my experience as a black woman places me in a great position to be able to tell a non-black person what actual black culture means. And as black people, we have to keep people's foot to the flame. We have to hold them accountable for the things that they do. And Jessie Nelson and that trash video, that circus video, is disgusting. And the only Nelson I'm interested in is Nelson Mandela. We are in Black History Month, so we need to get to regular programming. So recently, Maya Jama actually tweeted something, and I really wanted to discuss it briefly here on the podcast. And she says, I've clocked that papers will only ever report on my outfit, dating speculations, or when they can paint me as inexperienced or underqualified for something, LOL. I could do 4 shows in a month and the headline would be about how my cleavage looked in a tank top. You just got to laugh. And she goes, LOL, you lot are so shit. And so basically there was another headline, and the press were talking about how she's terrified in doing live TV over fears that she could mess up her career. So she said, LOL, you lot are so shit. I did not say that. I'm not terrified. It's literally my job. I was asked what can be scary about live TV and answered, headlines are so misleading when you actually look at the quotes. They go off. I hate it here. So I guess what I wanted to kind of talk about is, Maya Jama talking about, rather than kind of talking about anything positive, they focus on dating speculations, her inexperience and being underqualified, and don't even comment on her achievements like doing certain shows. And I read that and I was thinking, but as a black woman that I am, that is our entire existence, that we're never actually celebrated for the achievements that we actually achieve, be it in the world of work or even black women generally across the media. But what they are very good at is slandering us. I remember when I was on Big Brother and there was I'd been interviewed, right? I had so many interviews back then, and they asked me where I grew up, and I'm really, really proud and at any time, I will always say, I was born and raised in Tottenham, and I'm so proud of it. Like, some of the greatest people in music, people who are creative, people who are from so many different walks of life and quite successful in their field. Some of the ones that I know are born and raised in Tottenham. For me, Tottenham was an amazing place to grow up. It was an amazing atmosphere. So I gave this interview, and the headline is growing up around drugs, and I'm like, sorry. Hello, are we missing the bit where I am one of the success stories of Tottenham? Do you know what I mean? It's the media are all too joyous to kind of revel in the headlines that are so deceptive and so deceiving, and they never celebrate us. So when we are in the world of work, we're not celebrated either, are we? You know, you can do something amazing at work, but you're only as great as your last achievement. In fact, you could be the model employee at work, and everybody will forget that if you've done something wrong, and suddenly you're up for a disciplinary and you think, hang on, I've been at this company for a year, for example. No one has trained me, no one has done anything, and I've delivered. No one has raised any issue, and the one thing that I do as a mistake in the workplace is place on a magnifying glass and scrutinise, and I'm held over the coals. And for me, when I was reading that by Maya Jama, I was thinking, babes, you don't even you don't have the issues that I have as a black woman, or many of us have as black women. But yet, when I read it, I did laugh and I chuckled, because I think, if that is your experience, then it is not 1/3 of what me and my fellow black women go through in the world of work and in life. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to mention that, because I thought that was quite interesting. Also, as well, I guess just on the back of kind of the whole Jessie Nelson thing, I was actually tweeted. Somebody sent me something in my DMs, and I really want to read it because it was so interesting, and I actually really agreed with her. And she says, and I'll keep the person anonymous. She says that their actual beautiful and top tier white women never attempt to mixed fish, blackfish, or appropriate black culture or black women aesthetic. That is always the rejects of the race that come over, which is why it's even more insidious and strategic. They know they can't compete with the Megan Foxes, Gigi Hadid, or Angelina Jolie, but understand that whiteness and light skin is so valued in the black community that they can come over and be pedestaled even if they are basic, which is pathetic on our behalf. You're so right. Black women need to gatekeep our image and culture and make sure our beauty standards are clearly monoracial black women, so these interlopers have no space. And I just thought that was so interesting, because I definitely think, you know, okay, so Maya Jama is a mixed race woman, a beautiful mixed race woman, and very unproblematic as far as I'm concerned. But her comments that she made were quite interesting, because it's still laced in a privilege that black women don't have and will not have in a society that's endemic in racism. And then on the other hand, you've got, so I can't identify with Maya Jama's experience, because she still has an experience from a place of privilege. And I feel like with the Jessie Nelsons of this world, who after this, I'm not going to speak about again because she's just a knobhead. There is this idea that they understand some of the toxicity in our culture in the black community, and they are pedestaled and are seen as a certain standard. And I just think that black women, because we can't rely on the black men, we need to gatekeep our culture. We need to gatekeep what makes us amazing. And we also need to hold black fishers and people who commit to being racially ambiguous and still perpetuate racial stereotypes and push a narrative that is completely unacceptable. We need to hold them accountable. And I was very, very proud over the weekend to see that those who were speaking out were predominantly black women, and we were standing firm and confident in what we were saying, because we can see it for what it is. And it was actually some black men who were pretending to be blind to the fact that, number one, as black women, we're talking about these issues. We are defending black men as well, because we understand how racial stereotypes are being perpetuated. But black men, as some black men do, and I say some and not all, they will not protect black women. And it also means in a stage where we are calling something out that also protects them, they're not defending us as we do that, but instead seeing it as black women attacking Jessie Nelson. And I'm really sick and tired of this whole victim attitude, when in fact Jessie Nelson spoke about mental health, and as somebody who has suffered from mental health and has struggles with mental health, I just find it really hard to grapple with the fact that Jessie Nelson talks about mental health and how it wasn't healthy for her to be in the group and she left, only to then go solo in the same industry that she says is mentally debilitating. I don't understand it, but I do know that white women's tears are very powerful, and I do believe that to an extent Jessie Nelson uses it to her advantage. Equally saying that, I do think we need to protect Leanne from Little Mix, and I say protect, but what I'm saying is defend. Maybe that's probably the better word, not protect, but defend, because apparently she reached out to someone on TikTok, and I'm not going to say his name because I think that he is utterly disgusting, and he had done a dance on TikTok to Jessie Nelson's new song, and this is a mixed race guy, and allegedly Leanne Peacock, I think her name is Peacock, I think that's her last name, but I'll just call her Leanne, reached out to this TikToker and said, instead of doing this dance, we need to talk about Jessie Nelson's blackfishing. And rather than him kind of just ignore it or say nothing if he felt uncomfortable, he decided to go on social media and call Leanne out, and was saying it made him feel uncomfortable, all this, then defends Jessie Nelson and talks about her mental health, but completely disregards Leanne's mental health. And this is what I'm saying about in our community, really understanding that black women and those who identify as black women need to be protected, and needs to be protected to an extent that I think that it's all too easy for society to push black women to the edge and other us and act like we have no emotions and we don't care. And I definitely see it as in society quite prevalent, in that when black women when we talk about our experiences, sometimes we're almost disregarded. It's almost like we have to have hardcore facts to justify, our treatment, when our treatment is really clear. And this is why I always say, no matter what happens, Toya Talks will always be a safe place. It's always going to be a safe place for us black women to come together and talk and share and learn and grow. Because I definitely think that we have run out of safe spaces outside. And when I say outside, I mean in white constructs. Because by virtue of them being white constructs, they're not safe. And I say this and I move on to something else I wanted to talk about. So as you know, it's Black History Month, right? So I've got a lot of talks. Obviously, Black History Month is probably the most popular month for black activists like myself, who go into organisations, do racial equality, diversity, have those conversations, panels, public speaking events. And I have been booked at a university. I did share that on my Instagram page, and I'm just so blessed to even be in that position. I have given talks to some major companies, and I've never actually come out and spoken about it, but I'm going to do that in the vlog. In the vlog, I'm actually going to say the companies I've gone and done public speaking events with, racial equality, diversity training with senior management in some really big companies. And it's all down to you guys. You all are just so amazing, and you all ensure that I am in the spaces that I deserve to be in and have worked hard to be in, so that I can increase the knowledge of people who are determined to keep us out. And there's so many, amazing stories that I could share about my experiences going into organisations. And I think during the course of the vlogging and the book, I am going to do that. And, keeping the companies anonymous, but more about the learnings of what I've learned going into certain companies, which has also shaped the way I deliver Toya Talks. Anyway, I say this to say, there was one organisation and they wanted to meet with me before I went into their organisation, which is fair enough. You have some businesses that are like that. And the people that I was meeting with, I think it was just an opportunity for them to see how I related to the other panel member. Now, I'm one of these people that I don't talk much. I will speak when I'm spoken to. If I'm asked if I have any questions, I will ask a question that I genuinely want to ask, not just to fill space. So I was a bit quiet. I was just observing. And I asked a particular question, and the people I was speaking to were all black, okay? And I said, what is it that you want to get out of this? You know, I'm coming into your organization, I'm doing this, that, and the third, but what is it that I'm going to do that's going to lend itself to change? What is it that you are experiencing that needs to change, so that I can understand how to also position my talk and make sure there's some accountability on the side of this organization. So this Black Queen said, you know, I'm going to talk about myself here and what I've experienced. And she went into detail and she says, I do not feel safe. I don't feel safe talking about how difficult it is for me existing as a Black woman in this organisation. I do not feel safe. And in that moment, that was probably one of the most genuine things I think I heard that day, because I had done other talks and I had had other conversations, but it struck me that she felt safe enough to be vulnerable and display her vulnerability. And it kind of led me to think about, you know, as I talk and deliver Toya Talks and the podcast, I don't really talk about safety in workplace and feeling safe. And I do want to talk about that today, as well as obviously the main dilemma for this podcast episode. And I stopped, and, you know, as she finished speaking, I paused and I stopped and I said, listen, I just want to thank you for being strong enough to sit in your vulnerability and be honest, because your ability to be honest in this moment means that I'm going to be able to do something that adds to you or attempts to walk in progress of some form of safety. And at least I'm able to teach something and speak on a topic that maybe you don't feel comfortable about, but I'm comfortable enough to do, because I can do that as in my capacity going into your organization. And you could see that there was this relief I saw in her face, and this is all remote. As I think about safety in the workplace, I mean, let's talk about it. I've never felt safe at work, because even though we come to work as ourselves, it's a heightened version of ourselves, right? We know when we say come to work as self, we understand which self we're coming to work as. Still staying true to who you are, but understanding that there is a skill to navigate in the world of work. Feeling safe at work is never something that we are going to ever be afforded. And I think it's important that I put that on Front Street, because I feel like if you're looking for safety at work, what you're looking for also is equality. And we don't have that. We're not there yet. So the safety that we have to provide ourselves, and one may say, well, Toya, is it for us to provide safety for ourselves? And yes, it is. And how do we do that? It is by, number one, being in charge of your own career. It's the feedback folder. It's the burn folder. These are the things that will give you some level of safety, in that you are protecting yourself. If you are looking for a safe space in the workplace, unfortunately, I don't think that exists, because we're talking about organizations who are not even comfortable about talking about racial diversity. There are organizations that are more comfortable about talking about sexual diversity and anything that's diversity related that doesn't relate to race. As soon as we start talking about race, it becomes an uncomfortable conversation. Why? Because in order for us to talk about race, in order for us to really truly go into the deep-rooted issues, we need to talk about slavery. And white people are not ready for that conversation, because it means that they have to confront their own prejudice. It would mean that they would have to talk about things that are not taught in school, but the things that they grew up knowing, seeing, and being taught in their homes. You're asking white people to be honest in spaces that they don't have to be. And there are some white people that are not ready for that conversation. There are some Asian people that are not ready for that conversation, and other races who are not ready for that conversation. As Black people, we are highly underrepresented in certain workplaces, organizations, in certain spaces. We are underrepresented. And I think that we're underrepresented because of, number one, I don't think that we always have access to certain things and certain spaces. I think we're underrepresented because there are certain ceilings that don't allow us to be represented in spaces where our non-Black counterparts are. I think that in order for us to really have honest conversation, organizations have to commit to do the work and be held accountable. And it's easy for organizations to change focus. It's easy for them not to feel like they have to make that commitment, because there's no consequence if they don't, unless there is that one person or there are a collective group of people who are going to kind of, you know, really call things out and really want to go to war constantly. So I do recognize that Black History Month, even though we talk about Black History Month not just being a month, but it's an opportunity, I think, for certain organizations who have ethnic minorities, particularly Black people, because that's what we're talking about here, to be able to bring external people in to have uncomfortable conversations where they can't. And that is how I see it now. You know, before I used to be like, oh, Black History Month needs to be every month. And I still believe that, and I do agree. But I think the way I've started looking at it now is, you know, this is an opportunity where a collective group of colleagues, Black colleagues, or a Black person, or whoever it is from our community recognizes that this is the 1 month that they get to bring in an external person into their organization to talk about the things that they don't feel comfortable to talk about. Because as Black people, we are made to feel that we should never be comfortable. And it's given me a whole new way of now approaching my Toya Talks event. I practically say to them, what is it about our Black experience that you want me to bring into this talk? And I do exactly that. I draw on my own experiences. I draw on the experiences that I hear from you, and I talk about it. And I talk about it in a way that does make white people uncomfortable, because it forces a conversation to be had, which means change is not too far away. I've gone into organizations and I've literally had CEOs reach out to me and say, where do I start? As the headline subject in the subject box of an email. I have long-term relationships with organizations where I go in, I do certain things, and there are HR functions where I have literally transformed the way they recruit. We've gone from token to complete diversity, and that to me is a win. But it's an ongoing thing, because it could just take one wrong hire, one wrong senior manager, one wrong CEO to completely circumvent and derail all the progress an organization makes. I take my role extremely seriously. So when that Black queen said to me, I do not feel safe, what she said to me in that moment was, Toya, I do not feel safe, but I feel safe in knowing that you are going to bring into the organization things that I know that I cannot talk about, that you will talk about. And that gives me hope that there is going to be a commitment, an endorsement to some practical changes. And that is exactly what I am focused on doing going into these organizations. So I definitely wanted to share that, because the work that I know that I do is so important, and I never take for granted what the output could be. So if any of you are in organizations who are looking for somebody to come in and have those uncomfortable conversations, to talk about racial diversity, to talk about inequality in the workplace, to talk about what being Black in a workplace actually means, what that experience entails, then make sure you send them to my website, www.toyatalks.com. And also as well, I can be booked. You can book me. And if you email hello@toyatalks.com, in the subject box, just write, speaking event or whatever it is. Your organizations have budgets. Believe me, they have budgets. I do not, and I will not ever work for free unless I have decided to do some charity work. And there are charities that I do sponsor and I do work for, and I commit my brand, my business, to do 3 to 4 charitable acts a year, and I've done that, and I usually plan it ahead of time. So that to me it means the world to me. And I don't always toot the horn of the charity work I do, but I don't think I should have to. And just because you're a registered charity doesn't automatically mean that you will not pay for the service. You will do that, because equally a labourer is worth their wage, and I don't ever allow anybody to work for me for free. So therefore it can't be expected that as black people we'll continue to labour and labour where we have people then don't do the work. That's not going to happen. I've put so many years into developing this brand and developing myself and what Toya Talks actually stands for. Therefore, I believe it is time to pay for the education. Okay? There is a training budget. You will use it. You will find it and you will pay it. Thank you. 14-day payment terms. Thank you. That also leads me to something, actually. I must mention this. There was an organisation that reached out to me and said, they've heard about me, they've done all their research, and, the email, if you read it, it was literally like, and I met with them or whatever, we had a conversation. And during that conversation, they said, listen, there's a piece of work we'd like you to come in and do. We would like you to do X, Y, Z. So I said, okay, you know what? Put it in an email. I'll have a look at it. I'll probably have a few questions, and then I'll be able to give you indicative figure of how much I would charge for this work. And they said, no. We only have a budget of £100. I said, say, why now? They said £100. I said, that's not going to work. They said, yeah, but it's diverse, it's all of this, all these big words are thrown. I said, excuse me, never, ever will you ever underpay me for what I bring to the table. I will not work for £100. I said, even as a consultant in what I do for a living, I wouldn't even charge £100. Talk less of Toya Talks. I said, the reason why I have successful masterclasses, the reason why I stand in what I do isn't for the money. I do it because I want to see a change within my community. I want to ensure that black women have not just a voice, but are able to advocate and have a voice for themselves. I do what I do for the love of what I do. And I'm really committed to seeing the success of black women. So for you to offer me £100, that means you don't want to see the success of this black woman. I shut that shit right down. I will walk away. Do you understand? I have a walk away point, and I will walk. I will not be arrested by peanuts. It's not going to happen. I'm so sorry, because I know how much work goes into what I do. Like this particular organisation, they wanted to chat. I gave them a whole bloody presentation, PowerPoint slides and everything. I take what I do seriously. So to be disrespected in that way is disgusting. And then they had the cheek, this Black History Month, to send my assistant an email basically saying, Toya came in before, she had a conversation with us, because that conversation I charged for, and they were happy to pay that charge, and I tell you it was well over £100. And they said, we'd love to book her for Black History Month, however our budget is £200. So my assistant contacted me and told me. I said, don't even respond. She goes, what do you mean? I says, yeah, don't respond. They're not serious. Tell them to come back to us when they have a real budget. I said to my assistant, I said, that £100 is my transport money, so that's not even paying my actual fee. And my assistant laughed and she was like, Toya, what is actually going on? I said, it's just, as society has it, that privilege has people actually moving crazy. I said, audacity is at an all-time high, and audaciously stupid as people are, they will continue to allow themselves to look stupid insofar as there is somebody that's willing to take peanuts. I am allergic to nuts. I do not like peanuts, and I will not be accepting that. So I just said to just ignore it, or you tell them, come back to us when you have a budget. That's Toya's transport. Whatever you want to say, but I will not do it. I will walk away. And that's exactly what I did. So hopefully next year, when we get the new financial year, they'll get a budget that makes sense and they'll come back, because clearly they know they need me. This is what I mean. You need to sit on the throne of value. You need to sit on the throne of value. We are queens. And there has to be a point that you know that you will just walk away. And I know for some people who maybe have been unemployed for a while, or you're struggling with money, walking away from anything seems like too big a step to walk away from. But I'm so sorry. If you undervalue yourself one time, you will keep on doing it. You have made the sacrifices to allow yourself to be where you are. And yet you still undervalue that sacrifice by taking peanuts. I've been offered jobs before, and if the salary is not making that sense, I will go. I will leave. You see, for me, I never stop looking for jobs, even if I've been offered something, because things can change. I have literally gone from one role to another, and there's been overlap. Kind of like, like for some women, like, how I was maybe back in the day, you're coming out of a relationship, it's not working, and you're going into another one, but you're not too sure. And there's that little overlap bit as you get rid of the old and go into the new. That's how you have to treat your jobs, because I feel like some of us are so committed to the fantasy that these organizations sell you, and when you get there, you're in for a big fat shock. Listen, when I told you guys at the Toya Talks Live in 2018, I've told you throughout the Toya Talks podcast and various episodes, people, listen, social media, organizations, they will sell you a fantasy. And fantasy is best sold to people who sit outside and look in. We are voyeurs. We are all voyeurs. Anybody who is on social media, we are all voyeurs. And what does social media voyeurism sell us? It sells us this fantastical fantasy, picture perfect, picturesque life, when we know that that is not how society, that's not life. But because we are, maybe we lose ourselves in fantasy because we are going through something. So it's nice to almost close your eyes and forget about your issues and problems and live vicariously through other people. The same concept is for the world of work. When you go into an organization, like for example, I remember a few years ago when I was being interviewed for this particular organization. Now, how I even got the job is I'd applied for the job and I was rejected. And every time I walk past the building, like the windows are dirty, but they're so high up that you can't even see the dirt because they're just looking majestical and fantastical. I was just looking up and I would just be walking past there thinking, these bastards, they didn't even interview me, this, that, and the third. So then I got headhunted by the company through an agency. And the agency said, yeah, they've asked us to reach out. We are the preferred supplier, all of this. So I was gassed. I was like, what? I tried to apply. They didn't want me. Like, what was that about? And they said, no, they've overhauled their HR and all of this. And I went in for an interview. And as I walked in, hey, come and see something. Remember, I've come from Goldman Sachs. So Goldman Sachs was, have you been to the Goldman Sachs office? I think they've moved now, but their old office, where? Honey, that was a life I became accustomed to. I never had to leave the building because we had everything there. We even have a doctor and a dentist in the building. Are you kidding me? So when I went to this organization now, it was the same prestige. The turnstiles were even looking, the sound of the turnstile was even singing. That type of thing. I sat down at reception. The couches were kissing and hugging my butt. I was like, this is the life. Because they're selling you fantasy. When you go into an organization, of course the reception is going to be luscious. Mind you, the people upstairs in the offices, one is sitting next to a mouse, the other one is sitting next to a rat. Do you understand? But I was gassed. Even when I went in the lift, I was like, oh my God, the lifts are so clean, they're so nice. Of course, because that's ground one. Ground one is where the reception is. Everything is nice on ground one. Everything from ground one above is shit. Anyway, so as I went there, I was looking around. Everything was so big and so huge. And remember, I was on the outside looking in. When they hired me, you can talk to me. What? They hired me, little old me. Tottenham born and raised what? I got there, first day. Did they have my pass? No. When I got there, when I went to the canteen, the food looked stale. I said, what's all this? All this balloon and fantasy and party poppers. The reality was completely different. And as I continued my employment there, the managers were bullshit, the racism, the preferential treatment, the toxicity. This is how they sell you that dream, and you get in there and it's bullshit. So I've learned my lesson, and the lesson I have learned is it is in the interest of organizations to tell you a fantasy because they have roles they need to fill. They're not going to sit there and tell you the last person left because they were being bullied, or they're not going to say to you, we can't keep staff and our turnover is every 2 weeks people leave. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to tell you the best of the best, the same way you're going to go into an interview and tell them how fantastic and how great you are and how you literally, turn your previous company around and grew them from the ashes. You're going to do that. But I think we need to be conscious of the fantasy that organizations try to sell us. And if we are conscious about it, actually, one step before that is, how do you become conscious about it? It's by educating yourself. I've previously told you guys, go on Glassdoor, go on Google, go on Reddit, Google stuff about the company. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. There are people out there who will leave comments that have axe to grind. People do it on Trustpilot to eateries and stuff. So why would they not do it to businesses? However, there are common themes. This particular organization that was selling me the fantasy, the common theme that I kept seeing online was the lack of progression. And the fact that it was very cliquey on a management level, and if you wasn't part of the clique, you wasn't going to progress. And when I got there, it was exactly word for word what I read. But I was so stubborn and I was so committed to the fantasy and how it'd make my CV look sexy and all the rest of it, that I didn't actually focus on the fact that I didn't have an objective. I was going to this organization, no objective, just vibes. And the problem is, vibes only last so long, and then the reality kicks in when you're running to the toilet and you close yourself in the toilet, you're kicking yourself, crying because you don't want to be there anymore. And then suddenly it's so difficult to get a job where this job was so easy to get, or at least less hard than it is to get out. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I think it's important that we understand that we have a duty of care to ourselves. And that duty of care is easily said and done when you've been on benefits for 6 to 12 months and you just want a job and you just want to be off benefits. I get that. I've been there. I've done that. But I've equally done things where I've ran and fell down and had to start all over again because this one organization that I built up in my mind, I get there and it's too hot and I last a month and I've got to leave. An organization, for me, starts an interview process from the moment I make an application, albeit for an agency, directly, whatever. That's when the impressions of that organization are first born. It's from the way they deal with my recruitment. It's from how they interview me. Are they late? Are they tardy with their timekeeping? I notice all those things. And then you start to build an expectation based on the reality of your interactions, not the fantasy and the bubbles that you've created in your mind. Because when it pops, darling, you start to think to yourself, why did I ignore this? And there needs to be a practical approach to approaching roles and jobs. And this is definitely something that I'm going to be speaking about in one of my talks to one of these organizations, especially the university, whereby university students don't, and because they don't educate us and teach us how to navigate or understand the politics of the world of work, we still are part of that fantasy, right? And it's a nice bubble. It is a nice bubble to think that you're in university, you're studying hard, and then you think, right, when I go out into this world, I'm going to work for this big organization, it's going to be amazing, I'm going to get to wear whatever, I'm going to get to look professional and wear all these things, and I'm going to earn all this money. But that pops, and I want to be able to say, I'm not trying to burst your bubble or pop that bubble, but I want to put some reality to that bubble that you're creating for yourself, because that bubble is luring you into a false sense of security. And what happens down the line is then you become almost so disappointed by the disappointment organization levies at you because they haven't lived up to your expectation. And if I just take it back a little bit, organizations, they're businesses. Some organizations, they only care about their profit, their bottom line, and their stakeholders. Other organizations will tell you they're charities, but there's not one charitable thing about them. I've worked for a charity before, and I sit here and tell you, most charities are businesses. They make a lot of money. And having worked being a commercial contract consultant, I can tell you that I've worked for charities before, and they're some of the biggest businesses. If they tell you what they generate across a year, you'd be shocked. So clearly, even charities are going to operate like limited company businesses. The public sector is a business too. The only difference is it is accountable to the taxpayer. or there is a bit more rigor on how money is spent because it's taxpayers' money. But they're still businesses. It's just who they are owe explanation to is different. Profit is seen differently, and public sector don't operate from a profit perspective, do they? Whereas limited companies do. But charities operate from a profit perspective. They just don't call it profit. So I think it's really important to put that into perspective. That being said, even with the experiences that I've had, I've always thought that it's important to do the masterclasses that I have created on the Toya Talks podcast. And the reason is, when you go into those organisations, it's easy to get lost in the source. And there are works, and there is pieces of work that you need to do beforehand. So let's take the negotiation masterclass, for example, because we're going to talk about that through the dilemma. We're not really taught how to negotiate. And I've said this before, I said it on the masterclass. This gratitude and being grateful means that the opportunity to challenge and want more is not there, because we're just happy to have. And that happy to have is happy to settle. As soon as I recognise the value that I brought to an organisation and my own personal value in what I do, settling wasn't an option. It can't be an option when my white counterparts or my non-black counterparts are earning double what I earn, and yet they haven't sat one exam. Education is a myth for them, but I've gone through an education system for years and made sacrifices to get to where I am, and yet I'm not even recognised from a financial perspective. And when that kept happening, I realised what needed to change was me. So creating the negotiation masterclass was an opportunity for me to show you what top tier negotiation looks like, because that is what I do. Top tier negotiation. I know what my day rate is, and I've worked bloody hard for it, but I negotiated it. When the day rate I was on when I started is not the day rate I am on now. I've negotiated 2 increments, or 3. I think it's 3. Actually, 3 increments. And that has literally come from negotiating. My whole job in terms of commercial contracts is also predicated on negotiation. I negotiate every single day of my job. So this is what I do. If someone tells me their negotiation strategy or what they're going to go into negotiation with, I can tell you where the holes sit. And equally, when I go into negotiations, I know I determine very quickly the type of negotiator I'm negotiating with. So, for example, in one organisation I used to work at, I was negotiating a contract, and the person on the other side was a very emotional negotiator. So she made a lot of mistakes. And what happened was she was trapped in her own emotion because she led with emotion. And I got every single thing that I wanted as part of that negotiation because she showed me her cards very early on. And I used that as a weapon to get what I wanted, because ultimately I was working for the organisation. I wasn't working for her. And that was a win for me. And then taking that into my personal life is I've become a subject matter expert. And even when, I was going into roles and I wasn't quite a subject matter expert, I still knew what my value was through experience. And even when I didn't have a lot of experience, enthusiasm had to become my currency. And knowing that I had a lot to learn and being willing to learn and putting myself in situations whereby I recognized that before I could earn a certain amount, especially when I had no experience, it was okay to not necessarily negotiate right then and there, but know that down the line I had to achieve certain objectives to be placed in a situation of leverage to then negotiate later on. So there's always opportunities, whether you are junior at entry level or middle management, to be able to negotiate and get more. So that leads me to the dilemma that was DM'd to me. And I just want to say that I need people to respect how I work and to respect the boundaries that I set. And I set them especially because I need to protect myself, and I need to make sure that I protect my mental health. And also organisation. I'm dyslexic. So because of my learning disability, I get confused really easily. Organisation isn't always my strong part. And also when I'm reading things, sometimes letters jump around. So for me, if you're sending me a long dilemma, number one, why is it so long? Like, stick to the point. But number two, I've asked that all dilemmas be emailed to hello@toyatalks.com. I have an assistant that understands how I learn. I call her the dyslexia-friendly PA. Because she knows how I learn and how I understand and process information. So anytime I get a dilemma, she will put it into a folder for me, and then I'm able each day to go through those dilemmas, and I'm able to read them, and I'm able to, you know, write down some notes and key points. But when you send me them via DM, you don't allow me the opportunity to process it, because my DMs are always packed, always. So how am I supposed to assimilate this long dilemma and then go on to read other DMs and then remember, oh yeah, this person sent me a dilemma? Instagram DMs are not easy, because they don't even allow you, you know, like on Outlook where you can red flag something or blue flag something. They don't let you do that. So it's very hard to keep track of things. So in order for me to help you, help me be more organized by emailing hello@toyatalks.com, so that my assistant can help me organize myself, so then I can, number one, protect your anonymity, and then come onto the podcast and address your dilemma properly. That is all I ask. Anyway, so let's talk about this dilemma in which this episode is about. So I got DM'd by a black queen, and basically this black queen, she messaged me, and she basically had bought the negotiation masterclass, and something that made me slightly irritated, is that word, because of the way she framed the message. It was almost like, Toya, I've bought your negotiation masterclass and I've done everything you said I should do, but yeah, I'm in this situation. It felt like there was no acknowledgement of responsibility, because I'm giving you the tools to use them, and I'm teaching you the situation to use them in, but there has to be, you're in the situation, you have to read the room. And I definitely think, and that's a podcast episode, that some of us don't know how to read the room. Some of us find it difficult to read the room for whatever reason, and sometimes the basis of that is the emotion that we're using to enter into these things. You know, some people have been unemployed for a long time, so you're being led by emotion. In fact, you're an easy sell, because some organizations, they can also smell desperation. Yeah, I have been so desperate in interviews, especially when I was on job seekers allowance, that they wouldn't give me a job because I was too eager. And I've had that feedback before. Yeah. Well, because I was unemployed for almost a year. Of course I was fucking too eager. I need to get out. I didn't want to go into the job centre and see Stanley, the security guard, leering at me. I didn't want to sit in front of somebody who clearly hates their job and therefore hates me, and justify why I need job seekers allowance, knowing full well that I really want to work and I have all this education and I've got all this work experience, but yet it's hard for me to find a job. No. I didn't. Why wouldn't I be enthusiastic? But I think sometimes we are so desperate to come out of our situation that rather than leading from a place of, I'm really amazing at this job, I can deliver, we lead from a place of, I'm so desperate for money. And I get that, because I have been so desperate for money that, as far as I was concerned, even if they wanted to give me half of the advertised role, I was willing to take it, just so I didn't have to return to job seekers allowance. But I know that wouldn't work either, because I'd soon resent that job because I wouldn't be earning enough. So I definitely had to find a balance. Anyway, I digress, sorry. So let me read this. So you guys know I'm dyslexic, so you just have to be patient with me, okay? Let's read this. So she says, hi Toya, I hope you're well. Just wanted your advice on this. Didn't send as an email as I wanted to respond before Tuesday, which is the next podcast. That doesn't matter. That's not an excuse. Sorry. You need to abide by the dilemma rules. Sorry, let me go back to the message. I've entered into a negotiation process using the tools in the masterclass, and this is the recruiter's response. So she's not dealing with the organisation directly, she's dealing with a recruiter. And I have episodes talking about how to deal with recruiters, by the way. So before you would even enter into a negotiation, I would have told you to listen to that podcast, and then obviously you've got the masterclass, and then you would have entered that negotiation. For context, this is the role I need to get to the next stage in my career. I'm currently not working, but I believe I should be paid more. what would you advise me to respond to this or do, as I do want the role, but paying me on the lowest scale because I'm a temp and there's no budget doesn't seem like an adequate justification. But it's a catch-22, as if I walk away or I remain unemployed and could use this role to leverage another higher paying role. So the email that she sent is, hi, so this is from HR to this young lady. Hi, I've just caught up with Deborah. She had a chat with her supervisor yesterday about your request. Unfortunately, they are not going to be increasing the pay rate for the role that you have been offered. This is for a few reasons, mainly that they do not have the flexibility in their budget to increase the rate for a temporary role, which is why it's advertised as at a certain grade paying a certain amount of money, and they write the figure. And they offer this rate to all temporary to all temporary candidates joining the team, including the second candidate that was offered this role. If it were a permanent position, then there would be room to negotiate for a higher rate, but it is not a request that they will be granting at this time. Their offer of the temporary role still stands, and the pay rate of XYZ per hour plus holiday pay accrual. Deborah said to take the weekend to think it over if you would like to go ahead with the role and join them, and let us know on Monday what you decide. Please let me know if you have any questions. So this Black Queen then sent me what she had sent to them, and I just want to read it to you. So there's a bit before it that I can't see, but the bit that I can see, she said, so as part of her negotiation, this is what she wrote: I do want to make this offer work for both myself and the team, as I'm looking forward to joining your organisation. I have benchmarked your offer, and I can see that the industry pays an average of $34,000 per annum, so annually. I found that on so-and-so London and so-and-so pay between $32,000 to $37,000. The proposed offer of XYZ per hour is below both of these numbers and is at the lowest point on the salary scale. With over 6 years of experience working with young people, I feel like I'm uniquely positioned to carry out the role successfully. I would therefore like to negotiate my hourly rate to XYZ per hour on the basis of three key areas. My experience and skills lend itself to meet all three of the desirable criteria, meaning I'll be able to deliver beyond the essential criteria of this role due to my knowledge of the wider market. And then she wrote, I'm a subject matter expert in XYZ area. And then she gave an example. The findings were used by XYZ. Okay, so let me tell you where she went wrong. First and foremost, she showed her hand too quickly. You don't have to tell them how you meet the essential criteria. The fact that they're offering you that job means that you've met the essential criteria. That's first and foremost. Secondly, you have to know your audience. You are negotiating with somebody who is not the decision maker. You're actually negotiating with an intermediary who is an agency. The agency are only interested in, yes, for some of them, they want to get you a higher rate because then they get higher money. But it depends how long the role's been advertised for. If the role's been advertised for a while, they just want to get somebody in before they actually lose the commission altogether. Thirdly, her fundamental flaw where she went wrong here is, how is it that somebody's offering you an hourly rate, yet you are using the annual rate of another organisation? The hourly rate will always be lower than the annual. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And I said it to her. I was very honest. I said, okay, I can see that you've listened and heard the masterclass, but you're not applying it properly. You're not. You literally copied down word for word what I said, but you're not actually applying it. I said, first and foremost, when you did your research, it should have been based on an hourly rate. But equally as well, I wouldn't have approached it the way she did. I think the way I would have approached it, using the skills of the masterclass, I would have gone to them and said, Okay, I'm going to get back to you. I've got another interview later today. Yes. They want you. They would have given you the time to think about it. Say, please let me think about it. I'll come back. I've got another interview today and I had one yesterday and I've already received an offer. Please, can you give me an hour? That's what I would have done. Then I would have said to them, I would like to take this role. So say if this particular role was offering her £15 an hour, and let's just say that she wants to get, I don't know, £20 an hour, but her minimum is 17. I would say to her that another role that she has been offered are offering her £20 per hour, £20 per hour. However, she really wants to work with them, so she's willing to negotiate and she doesn't mind dropping that £20 per hour. But she's got another organisation offering her, who she had an interview with today, offering her £17.50 an hour. That means they have to come in between that 15 an hour and 20. They're not going to hit the top end. You're not going to accept the bottom. They have to meet you in the middle. That's how you would have done it. You don't have to go in and tell them you're a subject matter expert. You're showing your hand. And what you're actually showing them is that you are desperate because you are giving them everything. And that's why you've come to me, because you've got nowhere to go. And they know you've got nowhere to go. So they've given you their best and final. And that is their walk away point. When somebody gives you their best and final, that is their walk away. And I said to her, you involved me too late? You'd already, listen, there's no point trying to involve me when you've messed it up and then you want to involve me because you feel like you've used everything that I've taught in the masterclass. You've just thrown it at them with no type of strategy. And now you're like, Toya, what should I do? Well, if you were going to ask me what you should do, you should have come to me in the beginning and said, Toya, this is what I want to do. But you didn't have a plan. You just knew that money was too low and you wanted more. And the research that you did wasn't even useful because the recruiter quite rightly said, if you were going for a perm role, you could negotiate more. And why is that? Because we know that if it's a perm role, there's more money offered because it's given to you, it's an annual salary. If you equate that annual salary to an hourly rate, it would always be less, you know? And I said to her, her approach was completely wrong. And I think that everything that she wrote about being the subject matter expert and blah, 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 if you're having a conversation with the decision maker, I can understand why you would say all of that. But you're speaking to an intermediary. So you don't have to reiterate the point that you hit the essential criteria. You could have said, actually, because of my experience and being a subject matter expert, I have had a couple of interviews. I've got one offer already. I've got an interview today, but I really want this role. And I really want this role because I can see myself flourishing in this organisation and I definitely can see growth there. And actually, who knows, maybe I could end up going perm, in which would give me room to negotiate an annual salary. That's how you could have approached that. And these are all the things I teach on the Toya Talks masterclass. But for the negotiation masterclass, I think the important thing here is also recognising when you are negotiating, you give a little, you don't give everything. When you are negotiating and you give them everything, then they'll look at it and say, okay, what does this tell me? It tells me that we're her only option. It tells me that she's desperate. It tells me she hasn't done her research properly. Therefore, it means that she really, really, really wants the, let's call it, for example, £18 an hour. But really, this role should be paying you £25 per hour. But because you've already shown your hand, you've shown your card. So, you know, when you're playing poker, you don't tell the person next to you, yeah, I've got a couple of jokers, a king and a queen. You don't do that. You have to be poker face in how you approach it. That also means not showing all your cards. Showing enough to see how far you can go, but not showing everything so you have room to grow. Not showing them everything, just showing them enough. And now she's in a situation, I said, I'm sorry, darling, you've got to take this L. This L is called a learning lesson. They've given you their best and final. If you do not accept it, they'll withdraw the offer. It's simple as that. You see, in the masterclass, I give you the strategy, I give you everything, but the application comes from you, how you apply it. And I do talk about that in the masterclass. These are all the things I do and have done in my consulting career. And I'm telling you right now, it works. I have women in my email box testifying that the negotiation masterclass has transformed their earning potential because it works. One day I will tell you what my consultation fee is, my day rate, and you will scream. You will scream because I screamed. Because I knew what my potential was and I realized it. Being a subject matter expert is your leverage. I don't have to tell you I'm a subject matter expert. The fact that you called me in for an interview tells me you know that. I will reinforce it as part of our negotiation if you wiggle a little. If you move the negotiation a little bit and give me a little bit of what I want, I will also show you and tell you I'm a subject matter expert and this organization sees it. They're willing to give me this. What is your best and final? You can actually say, what is your best and final offer? I really want to work for you. Sometimes a little bit of smoozing. I really want to work for you. But at the same time, I do think it's important that I get a fair salary. I'll get a fair day rate or a fair hourly rate. When you do your research to prep for a negotiation, please, if you know that they're offering an hourly rate, don't tell them what you could earn annually. The annual will always be more than the hourly rate. Hourly rates are lower. They are. You can't. So I wouldn't compare. And they're not. When I say always lower, I mean especially for her area. But you always earn money annually. And they kind of said that in their email. If you were perm, there would be more of a budget. But what does that actually tell you? It tells you there is a budget. There is a budget. Because they're saying if you were perm, there's a budget, but there's not a budget if you're hourly. That doesn't make sense. Is there a budget or not? There is a budget. But because you showed your cards too early, they realise that you're desperate. They realise you are going to take it. And they realise that actually we're her only option. When an organisation knows that you are their only option, they know they don't have to do anything over and above or extra to get to you. Take it or leave it. They will hedge their bets. Some of these HR people, some of these recruiters who are middlemen are not good negotiators. In fact, some of the worst negotiators are recruiters. I tell recruiters all the time, do not negotiate for me. I'll tell you what to say. Especially if they don't give me access to the decision maker. I tell them this is what you should say. The ones that are not interested in getting me a higher rate and therefore getting more commission, I will always say I need to speak to the decision maker. And it's in their best interest to give me that decision maker or give me access because they also want the job, the commission from the job. The thing is with recruiters are only interested in themselves. You've got to understand that they don't give a shit about you. Yeah? When you get to the end of your contract, they call and say, I'm just doing a little check-in. They're not doing no check-in. They want to check. The only thing they're checking for is that you will accept an extension because for every extension, they get paid an extra commission. It's a business for these recruiters. They're not checking in on you. They're checking in on their check. You are their investment. You are the bonus for that month. And you need to remember that. Stop giving recruiters the ability to make decision on your money. Stop it. And if you have to, you need to manage the recruiter. We've got a podcast episode for that. Go and look at the podcast titles and the summaries. And I need to say that as well. I put a lot of effort into the summary description that accompanies the podcasts. So when somebody says to me, oh, Toya, have you got an episode about XYZ? Sorry, I've got over 100 podcast episodes, I believe. So why are you not looking? Why are you being lazy? Why are you still being lazy? Go and look at it. I pour everything into the podcast episodes. I pour everything into the descriptions, the show notes. I pour everything into the masterclass, and I've given you all the tools. But you've got to decide. Do you want to shine bright like a diamond? Or do you want to be cloudy like lemonade? Go and shine bright and choose yourself. Choose yourself. Stop looking for other people to make it easy for you. Make it easy for yourself by accessing the information. Do you understand? The reality is you're not always going to get everything you want from a negotiation, but a good negotiation is a win-win, and we talk about that on the masterclass, don't we? Win-wins. We talk about that. So without giving away too much, I will say that if you are good at negotiation but maybe need a few tips to brush it up a little bit, Maybe you're not so good at negotiation, you need some tips. Or maybe you think you're really good, but you just want to make sure that you've got all bases covered. Make sure you go onto the toyatalks.com website. The negotiation masterclass is very good. It's very good because I give you the techniques I use now. I give you everything. But you have to understand how to apply it. Application is up to you. This is the reason why I say to you guys, especially I get a lot of emails, Toya, can you review my CV? I'm never ever going to review your CV. Never. Because you are the architect of your own destiny. You. Anybody that does your CV for you is just collecting your money. You're paying them to collect your money. When you go into an interview, you have to embody the role that you are applying for. That means you have to embody your CV. Your CV is an introduction into who you are. So why would you allow somebody else to be the author of who you are? You are the author. You are the author of who you are. You're the architect of your destiny, and you are the author of your CV, and you need to own it. The same way I tell you that your career is your responsibility, it's your project, and you have to become a subject matter expert to be able to leverage a premium. It all starts with your CV. My CV is absolutely fantastic. Do you know why? Because it's one of my finest works. It's enabled me to access certain spaces. It's allowed me to have certain interviews with certain organizations. And it's set the basis of my negotiation, because I'm telling them through my CV that not only am I a subject matter expert, I'm a safe pair of hands, and I deliver and will deliver. I am an asset to your organization. You need me. And from that CV comes an interview. From that interview comes a negotiation. And that's why I have each of those stages as a masterclass on the website. What is important in a negotiation is understanding where your negotiation starts. Yeah? When you're having these interviews and organizations are already talking about money and budget, it's because they think they can't afford you. Let me give you that tip. It's not about not having the budget. They think they can't afford you. I.e., they have a budget, but they think you're at the top end or near their top end. And no organization, no manager, no HR want to use their entire budget because they don't know other things they'll have to pay for. So they're going to try and get you on the cheap. And if you cheapen yourself by, number one, not even negotiating at all, or maybe negotiating but not actually having anything that sits behind that negotiation, i.e. doing the research. And I teach you on the masterclass, negotiation masterclass, how to do the research before you enter a negotiation, because you have to prep. You've got to prepare for it. I never go into a negotiation without prepping, ever. Not at work, not in my career, not in my business. No, I always prep. Always. Because if you prep, it gives you the confidence to be able to have that uncomfortable conversation about money that still sometimes remains a taboo. Number one, it gives me the confidence that I am well within my rights and justified to ask for X, Y, Z. And you don't say this role and give them example of this and this. You just say the market, your competitor. You don't go and write down the name of what organization you saw that was offering more. No, that one is even long-winded. That's the research you do for yourself. You don't have to go and share that. You just say, you've looked on the market, on average, this is how much the salary ranges you're seeing. On average, this is how much you could get as a day rate. On average, this is what the market is saying on an hourly rate. Your competitor for the same role, same level, was offering XYZ per hour, per annum, daily, or day rate. You don't have to go into detail, long-winded details. You don't. Because what that says is it's almost like all the over-preparing that you're doing personally, you've literally just taken it and thrown it at them, and you've given them all your cards. So now they've come back to you with the best and final. You've got nowhere to go. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Don't take that preparation that you've done for because some of these interviews are remote, and you've got even more leverage because you can actually look at your notes. But even if you had there's never going to be a situation really where you have a face-to-face unless an organization sits there and says, let's talk money, And in some instances, that may be the situation. But again, I would hope that even before they've given you an offer, you've already started to look at the market a little bit and have at the back of your mind ranges. A lot of organisations, and I think it's due to the commercial space and where we are now with the pandemic and everything, a lot of organisations are removing salary brackets. They're not even mentioning salary in their adverts anymore. So when they're calling you for interviews, some of you are not even asking the question. Before I decide to come to an interview at your organisation, before I decide to clean my throat, wash the sleep out of my eyes and prep for your interview, you're going to tell me what the salary bracket is. You're going to tell me the range. You're going to tell me the day rate. You're going to tell me the hourly rate. I need some type of financial confirmation. Because you need to also understand whether they also, as an organisation, have done the work to make sure that they're pricing this particular role correctly. There are organisations that will deliberately lowball a role to respond to a desperate market. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Or if a market is oversaturated, they'll lowball a role so they can get it at the cheapest price. So it's important that you understand what they're offering and what the market's saying at the very least. And even if you're not offered the role, you're going into interviews knowing at the back of your mind kind of what salary you'd be looking for. You know, and also as well, I talk about it on the negotiation masterclass. What is your walk away point? Maybe you don't have a walk away point. When I was unemployed for a long period of time, I didn't have a walk away point. My walk away point is I need to walk away to the point of job offer. And I get that, and I laugh because I remember taking a role that was offering me 16,000 a year when really it should have been offering me 25k a year, and I was so desperate for a job. But then I soon realised that accepting that 16k because I was so desperate meant that by the time I paid my train fare, by the time I paid my bills, by the time I had no money for anything else. And actually it was more cost effective for me to be on benefits. And I had to walk away from that job. I made myself deliberately unemployed and back on benefits because from a financial standpoint, I was earning more on benefits than I was in a role. But yet I then had to explain to the job centre why the role didn't work. You know, I almost got accused of making myself deliberately unemployed. And I said almost got accused, but that's exactly what I did. You know, and I was just very lucky. Very, very lucky that my job centre just didn't do what they were supposed to do. And you know. So I really hope that helps. And it's really important that we speak about that today, because I've been seeing, like, from the dilemmas I've been receiving and reading, and, you know, I've noticed that there's a lot going on in the market. The market has changed a lot and continues to change. I think that the fact that people are now digging in their heels and saying actually it's remote or nothing means that organisations are then trying to claw back money where they can, and therefore they will say, right, if you're remote, then we're not going to offer you roles that have London waiting, which means that they push the salary right down. And still there are people that are saying, no, I want the salary at what it should be, and forcing organisations to not penalise salaries just because people want to work from home. I've seen a lot of that. The market is changing, but equally I think it's important that we also understand where we stand in our negotiation. Now with this Black Queen, she's learned from this, but I have to commend her because at least she attempted to negotiate. At least she did. And for some people who do not negotiate, are too afraid to, or avoid it in case they think that a job will be rescinded, or when I say rescinded, what I'm saying is a job, they'll retract their offer because you're negotiating, and that's enough to paralyze you into accepting a lowball offer. What I am going to say is this queen, although she didn't apply it very well, she entered into a negotiation. I can almost guarantee you her next role, she is going to negotiate a salary that she wants, and she'll get it. Because I can see that she's taken the lessons. She just have to work on the application. Now, she'll learn the application. She will, because she already knows that she'll get a higher paid role off the back of this role. So she's going to take this as a learning lesson. So her next role, she's going to learn from all the things she's done wrong, all the things I've mentioned on this podcast, and I promise you, she'll email me and say, Toya, everything you said is as what you said, and this is it. And sometimes you have to kind of go through that learning lesson as preparation for your next negotiation, because sometimes the greatest lessons are learned by some of the mistakes that we have made. And this is not a massive mistake, it's just one of those mistakes we make as part and parcel of the development of our career, and giving ourselves grace in accepting that we're going to make mistakes. I've carried a lot of learning lessons, a lot of L's. And what I loved about this queen is, even though, you know, you could tell like she wasn't happy and she was a bit annoyed, you know, about the situation, and I kind of, you know, I critiqued her approach, I critiqued her, she took it with grace, because she knew I was coming from a place of wanting to educate her and help her. But it was important for me as well to make sure that she understood that the tools are there, but the application comes from applying it in different situations and reading the room. Who are you negotiating with? Are they effectively communicating your negotiation? And the answer is no. There is no greater way to effectively communicate negotiation than with the decision maker or the budget holder. That is the person that you're able to effectively have good negotiation with. When you've got a middleman, you have to manage that middleman to communicate your negotiation. And I think because she hasn't worked in a long time, I think that because, you know, I get the impression from her the area that she works in is not as easy to get into. I think that she fell into that trap also of her mind being slightly limited because of the fear of, I don't want to be unemployed again. I'm not in a position, Toya, to walk away. But I don't think she saw the strength in her position, in that they offered you the job. That in itself is a form of leverage. They want you. They want you. There were two people offered the role and they chose you as one of them. What does that tell you? That there's something so special about you that they've seen that they like. There's something on your CV, there's something in your experience that they want access to. That is called value. And I think that we need to change our mindset. Being unemployed for a long period of time doesn't mean you lose your commercial value. You have value. It's just that sometimes when you've been unemployed for a long time, it's difficult to often recognize that value, because there is something quite debilitating about unemployment. There is something quite lonely about it, and almost feeling as though you're not good enough. And I understand that and recognize it 100%. I went from somebody who was confident in interviews to somebody who was shy and uncomfortable and awkward. I apologize, I'm so nervous. Constantly drinking cups of water, because the fear that captured me was that unemployment office. Until one day, my attitude was, actually, you know what's the worst that can happen? I'll go back to signing on. All right. I'm going to try my best. They're either going to want me or they don't. But just because they're offering me a job and I don't want to be unemployed doesn't mean I'm going to lowball myself. And if there are organisations that say they are unwilling to negotiate, you also have to be aware that this organisation may be difficult to work in. Inflexible negotiators are inflexible in jobs. Inflexible companies, if companies who do not negotiate, are difficult to work with because they're inflexible. And as we work and just in the working life, you need flexible employers. So what else are they going to be inflexible about? When Boris says, right, everybody work from home, we're in lockdown, is this organisation going to say, right, I know we're in lockdown, but those of you who have been vaccinated, we expect you to be in the office 3 days a week. We may be on lockdown, but you've had the vaccine, so you may get COVID, but you won't die. Yes, organisations can be that disgusting. And this is why I say to you, your research in a company starts from the moment you apply. All the interactions, including the negotiations or the non-negotiations, because organisations are inflexible. Do you want to work there? If you decide, actually, I do want to work there, then go in with your eyes open. That this inflexible organisation maybe inflexible for a few months, maybe a year, or however long you choose to stay, but it's not a long-term situation. And I think there needs to be that reality check in how we engage in organizations, how we have interviews, how we negotiate. And I give you that reality check through all the masterclasses housed on the toyatalks.com website. Now, because of a lot of the emails and dilemmas I've been receiving, I've made a decision. As you guys know, in 2020, I was supposed to do a Toya Talks Live. Then the pandemic hit. I refunded every single person who bought a ticket. I sold out within 72 hours. That would have been my second live event. I am planning a Toya Talks event next year, 2022. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm so excited. It's in planning stages at the moment. But I've also made another decision. In January, I am going to hold a remote masterclass on Zoom. And the masterclass, the first one will be negotiation. And the second one, I'm going to let you guys decide what topic you want me to cover. So if you are interested in participating in that masterclass, it would be a paid masterclass. So what it would consist of is me delivering a masterclass live, 30 minutes, and then 30-minute questions. There'll be a presentation, PowerPoint slides, and at the end of that masterclass, I will share those slides with you. Now, I've chosen negotiation, but you guys may say to me, actually, Toya, we want to know how to mark up a contract. When we get an employment contract, what are the things that we should be looking at? Because that was something I wanted to cover in the Toya Talks Live that I had to cancel last year, 2020. Maybe that's what you want me to talk about. Maybe that's what you want the masterclass to be on. So my suggestion is negotiation. However, if you guys email me at hello@toyatalks.com and tell me what you want that masterclass, that live remote masterclass to be, and there is enough of you that want it, I will deliver it. So this is what I'm going to say to you. In January, I'm going to hold 2 masterclasses. The people who bought tickets to the Toya Talks Live, they will be offered to buy a ticket. Those of you who have already purchased any of the masterclasses, you will get 30% off the masterclasses that I will be delivering live remote in January. I think that delivering a masterclass is something that I have been asked in the past to do remotely, and I've always kicked against it just because I think that the Toya Talks Live in person is fire. It is amazing. You know, there's a lot of interaction and I love that part. But I'm also conscious that the commercial space is changing. And when I say the commercial space, just the world of work, how we do work, how we operate is changing. Therefore, I think that it's important, like a year has passed now, that I do some form of a masterclass. So, I mean, for example, you could say, actually, Toya, yes, we want the how to mark up a contract, and what I'll do is I'll take one of my old contracts and I'll mark it up live, and then we can talk about it. And when I say mark up, I mean mark up for negotiation. So when I get a contract, and it could be to do some consultation work somewhere or whatever it is, I mark it up, all the clauses I want to change and the reasons why, and the implications and risks. I'm able to do that because that's what I do in my day-to-day job, and I do it very, very easily. But actually, for someone maybe who has never studied law, maybe you have, but you just don't know how to mark up an employment contract, or maybe you just don't have a clue and you just sign, Let's talk about it. What does this clause mean, Toya? Should I be wanting to change this? How do I negotiate a mobility clause? Things like that. I will do it live. I will have it already marked up and we'll go through it, and I will teach you guys, and we'll talk, and you'll get 30 minutes to ask me a question. So we're talking about a masterclass of an hour, and I'm going to be doing 2. So I'm going to open it up to you guys to decide. I've already given you some ideas. It can be a negotiation masterclass live and direct. It can be marking up an employment contract. It can be a probation masterclass. I'm going to do one anyway for the Toya Talks website, but maybe you want something in person, remote. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say in person because it's going to be remote. But maybe that's something that you guys want. So if you are interested, can you email hello@toyatalks.com? I'm planning to do it in January. It will be like, I don't know, maybe like I think I'll do it like a Saturday or a Sunday, because a lot of people I know work during the week. There are people that work weekends as well. So let's try and do that. That's what I want to do. It's something that I think that you guys will benefit from. And I think it will be beneficial as well to those people who have never had a Toya Talks experience, albeit remote. That will be your experience. And then we'll have the live event later on in the year. That's what I think would be a great idea, and I'm excited to do it. And it's something that I wish that I did before, but I think we're ready now. And I think there's a lot more to talk about, because the commercial space and the world of work as we know it has completely changed. The pandemic has really, really, unveiled companies and organizations and how they do business. And equally, we've had to acclimatize and adapt to the new way of working, or of work, and what the world of work looks like. Even to that end, I came on my period today, TMI, menstrual cycle and all that. But I thought, do you know what? Do you know how great it feels to go through the natural course of having a menstrual cycle without worrying about whether I'm bleeding through my trousers, or being at work having to kind of do the politics and pretend to laugh at unfunny jokes when I'm really having like throbbing pain in my lower stomach. Do you know what I mean? Like, the idea that one can be remote permanently is not a taboo anymore. And there are organizations that are kicking against it. Oh no, work-life balance, you have to be at work 3 days a week. Where's the balance in that? That's bullshit. I don't want to see a train in a long time unless I'm going to Selfridges. I'm not interested. I don't want to. And I definitely think that there is a lot to be said of the fact that you can still be a productive member of the workforce and work remotely. In fact, they did a poll, and they did some stats, and they found the lowest rates of sick days during the pandemic when we was on lockdown. Then over the last 10 years, it was the lowest they'd seen. Because what happens is, even if you're not feeling well, you may have an hour where you're not feeling as bad, and you'll log on and do some work. People are working longer hours because you're working from home. And actually, I get for some people, and from mental health perspective, it doesn't work for some people, but there are some people that it does work for. And I think we need to call it out. Dealing with the politics of the workplace is not completely removed working remotely. But what is my ability to disengage a lot easier without being told that my eyes are rolling back, or that I blinked too fast, or that I had a look on my face that was intimidating. Actually, I don't even have to switch my camera on. How about that? How about I'm not even in your face? How about I don't need to be part of the tea and biscuit brigade? Why? Because I'm in my own house, and actually I drink coffee. Anyway, and also as well, I really, really, really want to say thank you to each and every one of you who reached out to me last week to wish me a happy birthday. It was my birthday last week. I was thoroughly spoilt, and it was nice. I'm just one of those simple people. I'm not into parties. I don't even remember the last time I went to a party. I'm not a party person. I'm very much a homely person, very much somebody who is quite simple. I went to my favourite Chinese takeaway in Tottenham. I got my favourite takeaway food, came home, relaxed and just chilled. I did go to the cemetery as well to pay my respects to my father, and literally, it was nice, and getting all your messages and DMs was lovely. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your prayers, your blessings, and extending your hand of gratitude to remember me on my birthday. So thank you so much. Also as well, I want to put everybody on alert. If you guys followed me during the lockdown, you will know that I made my trips to certain shops. Remember, we'll all go in Costco's, we'll go into this supermarket early in the morning, we were doing all the lining up, all of that. We have to take all the lessons learned, yeah? Some of you, I told you guys, get a Costco card. Just do yourself a favour. If it's not water shortage, it's fuel shortage. If it's not fuel shortage, it's nappies shortage. If it's not nappies shortage, it's sanitary towel shortage. Everyday shortage. But when you go to Costco, you get everything trade in bulk. Just go and do yourself a favour. I definitely feel like if there's going to be a shortage of turkeys and ketchup, these people are going to riot. So Buko, do yourself a favour, start your Christmas shopping early. These are the same people that told us during Brexit that they voted so that people can just go back to their countries. We're all looking for lorry drivers. We've got no volunteers for those people who were telling others to go home. The ones that this is their home, why they're not applying for the lorry driver role? We can't hear you. Why are you not applying? You said that you wanted the lorry drivers to go back to their country. They've gone back and left the job for you. Where are you? We have no water here because we don't have any HGV drivers. Instead of you people that voted for Brexit to come and take your firm place in these jobs you don't want to do. And now we're all suffering. Come and catch up. If that disappears from the shelf, these people will not breed again. These people will not even. If you take lager and beer, I'm promising you, they will offer their grandma to go and be a HGV driver. These people are disgusting. What's all this? What is going on in this country? What is going? It's as mad as their prime minister, because I don't understand. Common fuel. And then after they'll be looking at other countries, calling them third world. What world are we living in? Is this the fourth world? Because I don't understand, and inquiring minds want to know. Anyway, my dears, let us come and be going. I feel like I have delivered the podcast for this week. I would love to hear from you guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned from it. And more importantly, I hope you've learned from the dilemma. Let us celebrate the Black Queen that entered into a negotiation. And whilst it didn't go the way she wanted to, at least she participated. And we will say this. Winner, 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 winner. We Black women are winners. Hey, winner, 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 winner. We Black women are winners, because she's a winner. Because you have to be in it to win it. And she participated. And her next role will be elevation. Amen. Before we wrap this episode up, I want to say something. I have episodes for this podcast. Yeah? Future episodes. There is a lot of things happening in the background I don't talk about because I'm waiting for them to develop. But this is what I am going to leave you guys with. I always talk about clean hands and clean hearts. Always win. Even when it looks like we're not winning, we are winning. I say to you guys that through this podcast, I'm doing the Lord's work. I know some of you think I'm joking. I'm not joking. When I talk about my ancestors and the protection that they circle me with, my hands are clean, my heart is clean. I come here every week and I do what I do because I'm walking in my path. I am walking in my destiny. This is what I have been ordained to do. I have been ordained to do this. Every time I go to organizations, I'm on ministry. I am on ministry because I need to deliver these racist structures from their madness. Do you understand? That being said, I'm a kind-hearted person and I'm very honest. But also, just know that discernment is at a high. My discernment is high. Because you see, I walk in the spirit of what is good. I try my best. I'm not perfect. I'm an imperfect human being. But my heart is clean. Anybody who is trying to do anything to derail me, or you're trying to take advantage of me, the Lord will bounce you off. Do you know what bouncing? Bouncing in the Lord. Bouncing, bouncing, bouncing. The Lord will bounce you off. Anybody that has bad heart and bad mind and you're trying to do a thing, let me tell you something. It's like opening your pants and shitting. The Lord will open your pants and your bum will be out. We'll all see your bum. Do not find yourself in a situation whereby the Lord reveals your heart and your heart is as black and dirty as a dirty onion. Do you understand? I know why I'm saying this. Those who have ears, let them hear. It's important that people understand that what I do here is not beans. It is not beans. I am a consultant by day. And I come here and I pour my knowledge and my experience here to benefit black women in my community. Why? Because as black women, we are often overlooked, underrepresented, and othered. And as far as I am concerned, being a successful black woman as I am, I've walked through that wilderness. And as I looked to my left and my right, I didn't see anybody. I walked there on my own. Not knowing that the Lord was making me walk through this. I was getting bruises. I was spat on. I was kicked while I was down on the floor because there was a testimony to be birthed. And I've given birth to it. Toya Talks. So I have been uniquely placed to do what I'm doing. So just understand that the owner of my destiny said that I have to walk this path. It wasn't a choice. I have to walk this path because that's what I have been ordained to do. So anybody who thinks they are more intelligent than the ancestors are going to show you a bum. And you'll be bounced off. Do you understand? Don't ever take my kindness for weakness. My kindness is because I feel as though no matter what I have been through, the Lord has been kind to me. The ancestors has been kind to me. And in order for us to break ceilings, in order for us to kick against this stereotype and the lack of progression and light shone on our community, we have to be equipped to access success. We have to develop the tools to be able to switch that light on in what will be perceived as the wilderness. The success of black women is my success too. Your success is her success. Our success is each other's success. And the only way to realize success is to recognize that we have to find a safe place where we can share and be honest. And every single week and every single day, when I walk in the ministry of Toya Talks, I bring my honesty. I bring myself and I stand in the front as an example to you all. Do you understand? So anybody who thinks that they're smart enough to try and do anything here, just know that the Lord has uncovered you and has seen you. Your nakedness is seen. Your bum is seen. Your stupidity is seen. And you will be bounced off. Do you understand? You know why? I am bouncing in the Lord. I am bouncing. And as I am bouncing, you are bounced off. When I'm bouncing up, you are bouncing down. Don't bring that bad spirit here. I know why I'm saying this. I know why. You know, my dad used to tell me, when you are about to access greatness, when you are about to really access greatness in the pursuit of your destiny, the devil will always attempt to try and claim the glory. There will always be a test. Why? Because in the testimony, there is a test. It's called testimony test. Any test that has been levied against me, the ancestors have shone through. So just because I'm using my Jesus mind doesn't mean I'm mad and I'm stupid. It just means that I know that there's a higher power guiding me. Do you understand? Every single thing that I have, I worked for, I sacrificed for, and there are people that will testify to it. What cannot happen is after pouring everything, something or somebody thinks that they can pull the wool over my eyes. I have 4 eyes for a reason, because I need to see everything. Okay? I'm just going to leave that here. Those who have ears, let them hear. Those who have ears, let them hear. Those who do not listen, the ancestors say you will feel. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, guys. And I'm going to thank you ever so much for listening. You know what we do here. The Toya Talks platform centers black women. We guide, advise, teach black women how to navigate the world of work safely. And in turn, highlight the path of our success. Because success is also ours. We are able to access success. Why? Because we are developing the tools to light up that path to success. I'm going to see you all next week, Tuesday. I do want to talk about relationships a bit more. There is a particular topic I want to cover here. So hopefully, if the ancestors ordain it to be so, that will be next week's episode. And I may even share the title with you on my social media handles. If you want to follow me on my personal Instagram page, my Instagram handle is Toya_Washington. If you would like to follow me on the Toya Talks podcast Instagram page, it's Toya_Talks. You want to follow me on TikTok? I need to do some more TikToks. I know you guys have been missing me there. Toya Washington, all one word. You want to follow me on Twitter? Toya_W with the hashtag Toya Talks or Toya Talks podcast. Follow me on Snapchat where Toya Talks was birthed. That's Toya Washington, all one word. Or if you have a dilemma, a work relationship, or life dilemma, or a relationship dilemma, email me hello@toyatalks.com. If you are interested in understanding a bit more about what I do, what we do here, and you're new to the platform, please visit the website www.toyatalks.com. If you are interested in purchasing any of the masterclass, the redundancy masterclass, CV masterclass, interview masterclass, and also the negotiation masterclass, and we also have the mother and daughter masterclass, make sure you go onto the toyatalks.com website. If you want to book me, speaking events, you feel like your organization needs to take that step in educating and also as well holding them accountable to the development of understanding about racial bias, inequality, and understand what it is to work whilst black, then please email me hello@toyatalks.com. I'm going to leave it there, guys. I'm going to wish you a great week. I'm going to wish you a great day. Please share the podcast with anybody else that you think that will benefit. And I'm going to see you all again next week, Tuesday, for another episode of the Toya Talks podcast. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.